Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly, and welcome everybody once again for another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be covering a couple of my favorite altcoins for the long term that I've been holding for a number of years now. And we're going to be talking about how these have actually finished their first 4-year cycles. This is something that we've been watching when the time frames were going to line up, knowing when Bitcoin was going to be at its projected bottom, as well as the rest of the altcoins in the market. But for today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys a couple prime examples of two altcoins that have done very well over the last few years, two altcoins that are now at their points where we should expect to see a reversal based off of the 4-year cycle, and how to go about playing these moves that are about to be taking place over the next couple months. If you're new and just find this channel, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to the channel for more updates. Always remember to click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos like the one provided for you here. And make sure you guys sign up and join the Discord server or download my free ebook. Links are going to be provided for you in the description for both of those. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so the cryptos that we're going to be talking about for today's video is going to be number 1, Chainlink, and number 2, Binance Coin. Now the reason we're going to be talking about these two today is because both are at very interesting points. I wanted to take one of the better performing cryptos of the last cycle, and I wanted to combine it with one of the better performing cryptos of this cycle, because in my opinion, all of these are kind of correlated. They all sync up and follow relatively the same time frames. And so what we can look for in one, we can definitely look for in the others. And we're going to kind of wrap all of this up and talk about how it applies with Bitcoin. Now, what we talk about inside of analyzing 4-year cycles is basically after the end of the bull run, we start a 1-year bear market. And generally inside of those bear markets, they only last 1 year. And it's pretty amazing how sometimes they can be almost exactly 1 year. But generally, as a rule of thumb, what I've seen them bottom is anywhere from about 365 days to about 400. That's generally where we do see bottoms inside of these markets based off of the 4-year cycle. And so we can see that we can go all the way back here with Binance Coin, and we're going to be looking at a couple different charts here. We have the first cycle to go off of, because this was a little bit of an older altcoin, but then we also have this cycle to go off of. So we're going to be taking a look at a couple of those things. And then we're also going to be talking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin's time frames kind of stack up with all of these. So first things first, let's get to a log scale on this chart and let's analyze some things. So the way that we would do this, if you're measuring a 4-year cycle, we measure from peak low of the cycle to peak low of the cycle. So you could draw this a couple different points. Basically, any of these wicks in here pretty much count. We're going to go ahead and just draw it at this one because this was the first major bounce after our decline. So the way that you would analyze a 4-year cycle is by analyzing the bottom of the sell-off to the bottom of the sell-off. And the bottom of the sell-off is at the bottom of each bear market. And so we can see that this was the bottom of our sell-off and our bear market in 2018. We ended up coming all the way down to about 17 cents before that ultimately became our low of the cycle. And what I find is interesting here is if we're looking at our most recent sell-off, this was our big crash that we saw where Chainlink actually sold off below $5, or I should say below $6. And where I would actually draw our next major line inside of this pivot is going to be right here. Now what I find is interesting, what the distance needs to be between each low of the bear market, it has to be 1,450 days, because that is how many days is in 4 years. Now if you guys notice here, if we analyze from the low of this sell-off here, we're at 1,413 days. Whereas if we come over here to maybe these two wicks that also retested the same point, we're going to be stacking up right here at that 1,450 day threshold. And so what we're looking for in a 4-year cycle is from the bottom of the bear market measured to the next bottom of the bear market. That should equal 4 years. 4 years in days is 1,450 days. That's the exact amount of time that we have had since our last bear market bottom. And so I find that that's interesting. We technically are inside of a bottoming part of a 4-year cycle. If you were ever somebody that was bullish on crypto long term and you were looking for a strategy in which to nail tops as well as nail bottoms, the 4-year cycles are definitely the most accurate indicator that we have. And we can prove that all the way by looking over here. We know that the low point of the bear market was 1,450 days, and that's also becoming the low point of this sell-off that we're at today. And if we look at the price range, generally inside of a bear market, you're going to see anywhere from about 85 to 90% of a pullback from those all-time highs. And Chainlink pulled back about 90% from those highs. And so where we're at from all-time high to the low is very on par with bear market corrections that we've seen. We're also at that exact same 4-year threshold between our last 4-year cycle bottom. So we're right at that exact same time frame in which people should be buying or waiting the next major 4-year cycle. But that's not all. We also have more conclusions to draw from. Now, another way that we would analyze when the bear market is over, we would actually come over here and we would draw a line at our all-time high. Now, where we would go is our all-time high to the low of the sell-off. So the low of the sell-off is this black dotted line here. Now, this is not always going to be 100%, but this is something that's played out in Bitcoin, and I'm going to draw with you guys a couple examples to share with you what I'm talking about. But any sort of bear market correction, and this has happened across the board of a number of altcoins, Ethereum, Bitcoin, a lot of those 2017 altcoins did this. But once a bear market begins, whatever that all-time high is, generally the bear markets last about a year in duration. And so aside from the 4 years distance we should have from the all-time low of the bear market to the next all-time low of the bear market, we can also measure the all-time high, and wherever the bear market bottom is, generally it only lasts about a year. We'll correct for a year's period of time, and then after that year threshold is generally where the bottom of that cycle comes in, the end of the bear market. So if we come over here and we get our date tool, and we go to the all-time high, and we go to this black dotted line, notice how this equals almost exactly a year. 368 days from the all-time high to pretty much the capitulation point of our most recent sell-off. Is it possible that we go for another low? Yeah, it's possible. We could make another low, and that wouldn't change anything necessarily. Really, it would just show that this was taking a little bit longer. But I mean, what we're looking at here, whether we measure from our first capitulation wick down here, or if we bounce off of our most recent two, all of these are right here sitting at that year range. And so when we look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin's a prime example of how long bear markets last. And we can go all the way back here to actually take a look at this. The first cycle, the bear market didn't last that long, but we had so much less money back here that it just makes sense why our bear market would be shorter, because there was just not as much liquidity inside the market. To get Bitcoin, to go from $2 to $1,400, there was way more money that had to be in the market than to send Bitcoin from 5 cents to $30, right? It was still a big move, but there wasn't nearly as much liquidity back in the market at this point. We didn't start getting into the billions of market cap until Bitcoin was really at this big move here. And so from this point, it's interesting how we actually see the bear markets actually equaling almost exactly 1 year in duration. We can see that this one from the all-time high to the all-time low was 409 days. We can see that the one in 2018 from the all-time high to the all-time low was almost exactly 1 year, 362 days. And if I was on a 1-day time frame, it would equal exactly 365 days. But now we're kind of at this point where, depending on where you're drawing the cycle top, whether you're drawing it from April, if you're drawing it from April, then we're already way past that, which is why most likely the 4-year cycle top was at $69,000. And then we're looking for the completion of this to be somewhere around November. And that's for Bitcoin, right? Now, this is kind of a little bit different for the altcoins. Notice how Bitcoin made an all-time high here at 69,000. But a lot of the altcoins peaked in May, right? So our true euphoria for altcoins was taking place in May. A lot of altcoins topped in May. We can look at Binance Coin as the same thing. A lot of them made lower highs, and they never made a new all-time high. And so what this is telling me is we're in a little bit of a different phase for the altcoins. Now, when we come over here and look at Bitcoin, because bear markets typically last about a year in duration, I think it's really interesting that we're seeing Chainlink for the first time ever being and flashing that 1 year correction being over. Not only that, but the low point of that 1 year correction is also taking us to the low point of a 4-year cycle bottom. And so these are different factors that are lining up in which you would say, oh my heck, these are 2 data points that we can pull off of that are giving us a really strong indication of something. And the indication that this is giving us is ultimately that a reversal is coming. And so when we look at prior bear markets, what we can know is that they last about a year in duration. On top of that, they correct anywhere from about 80 to 90%. On top of that, inside of a true 4-year cycle, the low point of that bear market correction should also equal 4 years from our last bear market bottom. And so everything that we're seeing inside of Chainlink today is 100% telling us that the end of the 4-year cycle and the beginning of the new 4-year cycle is upon us. We have every data point to look after that is flashing the beginning and the end of a 4-year cycle. Now we can also look over here at Binance Coin. Now I'm going to talk about Binance Coin for a couple different factors. We're going to get into the 4-year cycle as well. But this actually, the chart up here at the top, this black line, it's down here. And I wanted to share with you guys this because this is actually the bear market consolidation that Binance Coin made in its last cycle. Binance Coin was the only crypto where once the whole market bottomed in 2018 and everything kind of rallied up, the only two cryptos to make a new all-time high during that move where Bitcoin went to 14,000 were Chainlink. Chainlink made a new all-time high on that move. And Binance Coin made a new all-time high on that move. These were the two best performing cryptos at the beginning of the last cycle. And so I think it's important that we're taking a look at these once again because they're going to give us an idea of what is taking place inside of our bear market. Now, the reason why I'm talking about Binance Coin today is because I wanted to share with you guys this pattern here and how much it looks like what the consolidation we're seeing today is. Now, am I saying that the second that Bitcoin bottoms, Binance Coin is going to make a new all-time high? No, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just sharing with you guys how the cycles actually looked and how similar they really were in our consolidation. This is very much the same consolidation that we saw in our last bear market for Binance Coin, where we made our peak, we sold off, we made a lower high, and really our lower high in our most recent cycle was much higher than the one in 2017, right? When our 2018 bear market, really what we saw here was, barely made a lower high. It wasn't a very big move to the upside. And then when we sold off, we didn't really make a big move to the downside either. We barely broke support. And I find it interesting that this is pretty close to the same thing that we're seeing with Binance Coin today. I mean, technically, we never broke support. And we're kind of at that same point of that last bear market where if you would have bought at this point in Binance Coin, you would have been nailing a perfect entry before the whole market went up 100x, right? Now, I'm not saying Binance Coin is going to do the same thing again once more, but we're seeing the exact same sort of consolidations that have played out in our last bear market. They're happening again in this one. And if we're looking at our time frame where we're at today, I mean, from our all-time high to where Binance Coin bottomed, it's like 400 days from that high. So we're right on par with the end of our 1-year correction that we've been accustomed to seeing in bear markets. On top of that, that should also give us a pretty big correlation on when everything else should bottom. I mean, in the same way that we saw this play out in our last cycle, I'm sure that this cycle is a little bit longer, but where we peaked for Binance Coin compared to where we bottomed, so from the peak to the low was about 330 days, so just less than a year. But I mean, if we come over here at 365 days, that takes us to pretty much the very end of this bottom, takes us to right there. And then that was where we began the new cycle. And so it's not coincidence, guys. The better altcoins of that last cycle followed 4-year cycles, and they bottomed after a year of a correction. Binance Coin did this, and then it began its new 4-year cycle. And look at what Binance Coin ended up doing long term. We're at this same point again, where we're at 400 days worth of consolidation from the all-time high. Historically, this has marked bear market bottoms. Even if we did get a little a peak below, and then we came back above, it doesn't change anything. This should ultimately resolve into a similar consolidation of this. This will be some type of accumulation. Go sideways and bounce back up, even if we came back down. I honestly think that this will ultimately play out similarly to this throughout the rest of the year. Not expecting a lot for the rest of the year. I do expect that whenever Bitcoin bottoms, which most likely is going to be around November timeframes, it will start making its first higher high in the new bull trend, and that's where we're going to see the outliers of the next cycle lead the charge. I think it's really important that we watch for which altcoins lead the first Bitcoin breakout, because it's those cryptos that make the first major move, that those are the ones that you want to put a lot of focus of your portfolio in. At this point, the big thing that we're watching for is which cryptos are going to start taking off, which ones are going to be the Bitcoins, which ones are going to be the Ethereums, the Solanas, the Terra Lunas, and all of those major pump cryptos. Those are the ones we want to put a focus on. And the ones that ultimately proved that we're going to be the greatest in that last cycle were the ones that broke out the hardest during that next bull run. And so as we're looking at many altcoins showing for the first time ever that they're at the completion points of their 4-year cycles and they're now starting new 4-year cycles, we're also looking at the combination of altcoins from the last cycle that look almost identical to their last bear markets. This is all very much the same sort of market cycles. They might be a little bit different. Some altcoins might not do well in one cycle. Others might do better in another. It's hard to say exactly what's going to happen. But what I can say is, based off of the 4-year cycle, we are at the point of reversal. Bitcoin does have a little bit further, but the altcoins themselves do look to be at the points of reversals. It might take a little while of sideways accumulation, but I do believe that we're due for a move in the short term, at the very least, that is going to cement these lows for the altcoins. At the very least, the ones that are going to be the ones that, are massively adopted. Because in the same way that many altcoins in the 2017 2018 bull market never had a new cycle, we're going to see the same thing kind of happen again. Now for me, I think the Chainlink and Binance Coin are two cryptos that are going to have a long-term future. Chainlink for me for sure, Binance Coin for sure. Binance Coin is one of the only actual exchanges that is actively hiring new people and new staff right now. Where we saw Coinbase and Kraken and many other US exchanges laying off employees during this bear market, we're seeing the opposite playing out for Binance Coin. And I think that the price is actually showing that. There's a reason we haven't broken support from our summer lows of 2021. And I think that these are going to be ultimately telling us which cryptos are the best to buy. What ones are showing the most strength, which ones are following most closely to the 4-year cycles, because that is where we want to put our money. And I think that really, we're not going to know truly until Bitcoin makes its first higher high. Whenever Bitcoin finds a low and we finally make a first breakout, whether that's November, December, it doesn't necessarily matter. Whenever that move happens, whichever altcoins are the outliers of that move, whatever altcoins outperform Bitcoin, they make new all-time highs. In my opinion, those are the ones that we should focus on, because those are going to be the Solanas. Those are going to be the Binance Coins, the Chainlinks, the ones that perform the best. They lead the bull run first. So these are just some thoughts I've been having. Wanted to share with you guys some analysis, is talking about the 4-year cycle, because we are at that point. Make a decision. Ultimately for me, I'm going to continue to hold. I'm going to continue to buy more crypto, because that just makes more sense to me. And that's kind of going to be my plan from here. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you found value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. If you guys want to join the Discord server or download my free ebook, links are in the description for that. You guys can also sign up for my VIP course, signals, follow all the trades I take, and all of that fun stuff as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.